Whether we're talking about the expert craftsmanship involved in the construction of the pyramids of Giza, the intricacies of the hieroglyphics, or the beautiful artwork of the time, it's intriguing to wonder, what was life really like in ancient Egypt? How the hell would I know, and why are you listening to me explain this? Today, we're going to try to explain what it was really like, exploring topics such as how society was structured, from the upper class to the lower class, ancient Egyptian beliefs, and a bit about the technology of the time. This is the first of a two-part series, so let's get into it. So just to start off, when we mention the term ancient Egypt, we aren't just referring to some civilization that existed for a few short years at some insignificant point of time in the past. We're actually talking about a span of time lasting more than 3,000 years, consisting of different periods separated by different dynasties and different levels of stability and instability. However, overall we have the early dynastic period, the Old Kingdom, the first intermediate periods, the Middle Kingdom, the second intermediate period, the New Kingdom, the third intermediate period, and the late period. In this video, I'll be speaking in general, but you may hear me refer to specific periods from time to time. Another important thing to note is the role that religion played in ancient Egypt. This was a red thread that affected every single part of ancient Egyptian life. Egyptians were polytheistic, meaning that they believed in many gods and goddesses. I don't know about you, but I believe in Jesus Christ. Different villages and towns had different deities that they claimed to be their preferred god, and this would affect the types of rituals, sacrifices, and offerings they performed. They also confused science with magic and believed in religious myths to explain how things worked, such as the creation of the world or what happens when we die. Now let's look at how things worked on a societal level. Ancient Egypt was organized in distinct social classes, with the king at the top, with members of his courts and his vizier or visors who were responsible for supervising the running of the country, sort of like what a prime minister would do today. Among the upper class were also nobles, regional governors, priests, doctors, and scribes, and among the lower classes were more often craftsmen and the peasantry. Social mobility was not encouraged, as it was common thought that the gods had decreed the perfect social order into existence. The gods had given the people everything they needed and had set the king as the best equipped person to understand the gods and implement their will. In essence, the king was God's chosen, divinely ordained emissary. Fun fact, you've heard me refer to the ruler of Egypt as king, although I'm sure you're quite familiar with the term pharaoh. Well, in ancient texts, the word pharaoh mainly appeared in the New Kingdom. Before this, the word king was the most commonly used term to describe the ruler of ancient Egypt, and this was regardless of gender. The king lived in luxury, in a richly decorated palace with wealth and status in abundance. For example, Pharaoh Amenhotep III's palace had 30,000 square meters of space, with apartments, conference rooms, audience chambers, a throne room, receiving halls, festival halls, libraries, kitchens. You get the drift. It was a want-free life, with servants doing most of the menial work, leaving the king plenty of free time to pursue leisures and luxuries. The king would often be depicted as a hunter, hunting animals like lions and elephants in a show of his strength. Although we know that in real life, royal game wardens would actually capture the animals and bring them to preserves where the king would then hunt them, surrounded by his guards who then protected him. Members of the king's court would also enjoy similar comforts, with most having little responsibility. Regional governors may also live well, but this heavily depended on how wealthy their district was and how important they were to the king. For example, the regional governor of a district like Abydos would do very well due to the necropolis there dedicated to Osiris, which brought pilgrims into the city. Other important members of the upper class were scribes. Scribes were considered to be chosen by the god Thoth, and it was their responsibility to record events so that they would become permanent. A scribe's work made them essentially immortal, not only because future generations would have access to their work, but also because it was believed that the gods were aware of them. We also had priests, who often also played the role of doctor in ancient Egypt. All priests were scribes, but not all scribes were priests. Being literate was important for this role, especially, for example, during mortuary rituals. Diseases and illnesses were also thought to be punishments from gods or spirits, so the doctors would need to be aware of which supernatural agent may be responsible for this. They would also need to be aware of literature from the time concerning dentistry, settling of bones, curing certain illnesses, and so on and so forth to do their daily work. Now, the lower class members of society were usually peasant farmers or more skilled craftsmen. Peasants would usually be farmers, no matter what other craft they cultivated. Farmers would work on land that they didn't own to harvest crops. They would then keep a small amount of the harvest to feed themselves and their families, and then hand over the rest to the landowners, usually the king, regional governors, priests, or other members of the royal class. Peasants would also build homes for others, but lived less spectacularly, often in houses with mud brick walls, ceilings made from bundles of plant stems, floors of hard-beaten earth covered by straw or like mats made from reeds. Their houses may also contain a small garden which the woman would usually tend to, in addition to looking after the children and other elders in the family. The economy worked on a barter system based on agriculture up until the Persian invasion of 525 BCE. The money unit of ancient Egypt was the deban. This functioned just like the pound or dollar today, to let people know the price of things, except there was no deban coin, it was more of a concept. A deban was roughly 90 grams of copper, and more expensive items could be valued or priced in debans of gold or silver, with proportionate changes in value. In general, the lower class produced the goods used in trade and provided the backbone for the entire culture to thrive. They also made up the labor force which built the pyramids and other monuments. When the Nile River flooded its banks and farming was impossible, peasants would work on the king's projects and would usually be compensated for this. There was one way that skilled peasants could actually increase their social status, and this was by practicing a craft that was in high demand. For example, this could be in work on monuments such as the pyramids, temples, and obelisks. Skilled artists and engravers were also in high demand and were higher paid than unskilled laborers who simply just moved the stones. Skilled farmers could also practice a craft to provide things that people needed, such as vases, bowls, plates, tables, etc. The ancient Egyptians were a highly skilled people with numerous technological advancements taking place during this era. For example, the first writing system, papyrus, the ox-drawn plough, which revolutionized agriculture, astronomy, geometry, and maths, which was crucial for building the pyramids. Although, I don't know if you've seen the bent pyramid, someone got the maths wrong on that one. I just have to point that out. And that brings us to the end of this video. As you know, this was the first in a two-part series. The next video is going to explore topics such as crime and punishment, the military, the role of family, and much more. Join us again next time. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this in the future, and I'll see you again in the next one.